Welcome to part 2 of this video. Thank you for joining us. We're going to continue this difficult conversation of address why we don't talk about it, and some of the side effects that we're experiencing.
It's not everyone who sees how the negativity. Like in our previous video, Kerubo mentioned that she was proud of it, and a lot of people are still proud of it. It's a rite of passage. It's just one of those things where when you come in with we start thinking about what is wrong with something. You also have to go to the heart of it and talk about like what else is behind that. There's still people who believe that it's like, how can I do away with the rite of passage? And so we're kind of caught in between that conversation of there's pride in culture.
Yeah, like what do you replace it?
But then there's like another layer of it that is pride attached to it. Yeah. And then there's now people slowly removing themselves from that belief that it has to happen. Because there's also like superstition attached to it. Or there was even marriage stigma attached to it, that a girl could not be married unless she was circumcised. Yeah. So this is part of the reasons today that we recognize that families don't want to talk about it. So how to reconcile that traditional woman, the older or the older generation, for example, my grandmother and your grandmothers, are still attaching value to that, and it's not dehumanizing that. Just in case you're out there and you're on the other side of the fence, it's not criticizing that value you attach to that culture, but it's that's why it's important to talk about.
Addressed this way. Yeah. For me, I tried having those conversations with my mom. Eventually, it's kind of somewhat worked out, but it was difficult because it's personal, and we come in from a society where you don't talk about sex. You don't introduce your boyfriend. Not everybody, but like at least in my experience, it's been like you don't really introduce your boyfriend. Like even dating, it's like your dad is like, who's that? Like, why are you with him? Get in the house and study. Like it's just there's a lot of negative energy when it comes to sexuality and even just dating, which is basic. And then when you're 26 and they're like 27, they start looking at you like, where's your husband? And you're like, so how am I supposed to meet a husband when you haven't allowed me to get out of the house to meet anybody? So for me, like having that conversation, I don't know, it's just topics you don't talk about, one of those taboo topics you don't talk about. And maybe because it's partially like it's illegal, like so by law it is illegal. Is it enforced? Not as much as it should.
Yeah. I think also ignorance plays a part, because if you've grown up in the city, say Nairobi, you don't go to the village as much, then you probably don't think it still exists. Like for the longest time, I thought these conversations about FGM they were just too much. Everyone was talking about FGM, and it's like, well, I don't see why it goes on. But that's because I grew up mostly in the city, and I had to get out of my my bubble and go into the community and see that it's actually still going on, and that's why we still need to talk about it. So, from a point of a girl growing up in the city, you don't attach much value to this conversation, because it's like, it's how we talk about, I'll compare this to women empowerment. A lot of people think, it's overrated. We're always talking about women empowerment. It's been too much, but it still needs to happen. And it's the same thing I feel about FGM. It's still happening. We still need to talk about it. But people who have no experience with it, people who haven't seen it going on or haven't had anyone close to them experience that, would not understand. And so they wouldn't know what to talk about. Yeah.
So this is just our effort, to break the silence and just come out of that comfort zone. We're kind of just laying, our shame, quote unquote, just to start being the ones to talk about this. We will be talking about the side effects which the two of us experience, and just in that effort to show you to show that it still goes on in this very generation. And I know distant cousins who just happened to be in that cultural, ritual just very recently. So it's still very present, and no one has died yet. I know in more intense female genital mutilation, like among the Maasai or Samburu, it's more, it could happen that somebody could die. I think that's part of the reason people justify that it's no big deal, it's just a cat. And it's just a cat that makes you a woman.
Yeah, and by the way, the making of a woman is not, it's part of it. I think part of the argument when I spoke to my mom is like the clitoris for the, like everybody knows that the clitoris is where your senses are when you get aroused during sex. And so if they cut that part out, the argument is that you'll be less sensitive, so you'll be less like attracted to men, you'll be less promiscuous. So that was like when you talk about like cultural oppression, that's the problem there, because they do it as a way to subjugate the woman, so you like save yourself for the man, or like you're trying. And even as we break into the side effects right now, as a married woman right now, I'm finding it very difficult, because for me, unfortunately, I don't know if for other girls that the wound healed, but for me the wound doesn't heal. Like occasionally it will come up and I'm using the bathroom and I'm wiping and I realize like there's some blood and I'm like, what is this? And it's my clitoris that is unhealing. So it means like either the way they cut it, like it just was in such a way that the wound never healed, and it just happens. And like, you'll have sex and there's a lot of impact that goes on. And even before you go to the impact part, like just the beginning when you're trying to feel something, it's so frustrating for me and for my husband, because I can never feel that sense, because like that part of my body which is supposed to be like the exterior part, at least, that's supposed to be aroused and like but seriously, we are trying to figure it out. The two of us, we haven't spoken about like this specific part about the side effects, so we're all kind of learning like about each other's bodies. And I'm curious to talk to more like maybe my sister and see how it is for her, but for me it never healed. And so like sometimes there'll be blood, and sometimes it's just like I just maybe can't have sex like 2 days in a row, because it'll be like, no, like it came raw and I need to heal, and that's very frustrating for marriage, I think. And not to mention that you can't be really excited because that part of your anatomy, which should be there, which was created by God for that very reason of enjoying sex, doesn't exist.
Fortunately, Buyaki mentioned that we women also perpetuate this. Maybe it starts being built into our systems as pride, as as some cultural duty, and it's really not. We're still women, whether or not Buyaki is a fantastic woman, whether or not she got circumcised. So it's just to just. I'm getting a bit passionate here, but just to remove that amount of just ignorance and this patriarchal perpetuation of in
which
this
maybe we don't even realize. Like maybe we just do it and not realize.
We don't realize that a man will be satisfied whether or not you have that clitoris, but you end up being at the service of whoever. Even if you love them, you end up being at the service. And this is a larger conversation of being a woman. And I know we've been trained to be shy about our sexual feelings and about our bodies, and we just wanna I know some people will get offended by some of these conversations, but it's a symptom of a larger issue where why can't we talk about being sexually frustrated, or just being like not being able to make sexual decisions when we were younger, that we go through later in life,
something like this happening to you at 10 that affects you for the rest of your life is not right. Like if they're gonna do FGM, maybe I'm like, why don't you 21 and then you decide if this is something you actively want to do as an adult, which is stupid anyway. Nobody would choose that. They do it on children because you have no choice, either you haven't developed your mind enough to know that this is wrong, or you've been protected from it. Like just something they do it as kids because they know you're defenseless at that time.
I'd say that we really need to be vigilant for the people around us, our siblings, our neighbors, just people around us. Because I remember I did not go through it, but my sister was this close to going through it. We were having a family function and my aunties came, and they were really insisting on her going to the village So we don't go to the village as much, but my aunt was really insisting. And at one point I was like, well, I guess they just need her to go stay in the village for a while. And I was really in support of it. I was even telling my sister, yeah, you should go spend some time in the village. And I remember I even packed clothes for her. Okay, maybe it's also partly because I felt like she was really annoying me, and I was like, a good break, just go to the village. But I packed her stuff, and we were gonna take her to my auntie to leave the next day. And then that's when at night, when I was talking to my mom, we're like, wait, why did your aunt insist so much? She doesn't usually do that. This is not the first family gathering we're having, and she's insisting so much. And then how like in our communities there's a certain period, like the peak, when schools have closed. Yeah, exactly. It was during the summer, in April. I remember it happens a lot in April because people the kids have
Actually,
closed
for
school.
me, my experience was December, because December is a long holiday and there's Christmas and there's a lot of celebration going on anyway.
Yeah, so it was around that time when schools have closed, and there's a lot of family, everything, everywhere. And so that's when my mom sat down and we're like, wait, my mom and I sat down and we're like, wait, that is just weird. And that was when she was like, I think it's that season. Because my aunt wanted her to go spend time with my other cousin. So that's when we were like, this is just weird. Something is fishy about it. And then that's when we pulled my sister out of the plan. We're like, no, you're not gonna go. So that time I'd already hyped her, and she was like, yay, I'm going to Shags. But we had to pull her out of that because we realized what was going to happen. And it's unfortunate that not everyone gets to that point. I mean, it's gotten to a point where the perpetrators have become really, really clever about it. They just find two weak points somewhere and are able to steal away these kids, and before you know it, your child or your sister or your neighbor, your friend, your cousin has gone through it, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the worst part of it. It's irreversible. It's happened. The most they can say is, well, you could be bitter, you could throw a fit, but it's already happened, and that's somebody's life that has been changed for life. So I think we really need to be vigilant, and part of that is having this conversation and making sure that we upset that norm. I don't like the idea that we're always playing safe and saying, well, if you're on the other side. I think it is wrong. I believe it is wrong, and it's not about much as we respect each other's opinions, I still believe it's wrong. So call a spade a spade. I'm not going to try and make you feel comfortable about thinking that it's right. I believe it's wrong, and that is what it is. So just having that conversation, putting it out there, upsetting the norm, making those people feel uncomfortable enough to be scared to do it. Not just being complacent and saying, well, it's not happening to me, it's not happening to my child. No, I think it's a larger problem in the community, and we need to take care of each other.